let's bring out right now Roger Clark, Rob Wiethoff. So, why don't you guys just kind of open it up with your thoughts and feelings on making just such an absolutely monumental, incredibly epic game that has affected all of us in this room. And then we'll open up to some questions from the crowd.
I think first of all, really thank you all for coming out here to FanX and inviting us, and then coming to this panel to kind of get to know us a little bit. Yeah, really, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been crazy. We just started doing these things, and this is our third one in the U.S. And just the outpouring of love and support that you guys have given us, and to let us know how much you enjoyed the game, it really means a lot. And yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. I don't know if we're waiting on microphones or anything for questions, but I guess just to pass the time, I could say, well, I know one thing I could do maybe is tell you what my favorite mission is. I don't want to spoil it, but I can tell you that the first time we went to get Jack, and we were walking up towards Braithwaite Mansion. How cool was that, right? That was insane. And what else was insane is when I was lucky enough to accept the award for Best Performance at the Game Awards. And then everyone started to think, hang on a minute, is Arthur Irish? It doesn't make any sense. It was kind of like when your man, Hugh Laurie, goes up to accept the Emmy for House, and they went, what, he's British? Anyway, I think we got the microphones ready, so all right, let's see what the first question is.
Hopefully it's a doozy. So just want to say on behalf of everyone here, thank you for such an amazing franchise. And for I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not a big crier. I don't get it. I'm not very emotional. By the end of Red Dead 2, I was bawling. So I just wanted to know if you could talk about what the process of actually making the game was like. Were there any major differences between making the first and second and the last day of shooting?
You were first, so I guess you should.
Well, yeah, so the major differences between the first and the second were there were so many more options in the second game than there were in the first. You can interact with pretty much everything in the second game. And in the first, you can interact with a lot of things, but in the second, it's on a whole different level. So we had to take into consideration that people, the player would direct Arthur to come in from different angles possibly. So a lot of the scenes that we shot, we would do from multiple entrances, multiple exits. And we also did a lot of things where you would sit and kind of stay busy doing something just in case Arthur decides to just stand there and stare at you. I'm sure nobody did, I'm sure. But
you never know. Sometimes you go and get a cup of coffee and he's just standing there.
But yeah, I mean, so the first time around we might have done 15 scenes in a day. This time around we did 3 or 4, and so it was a much more, it took a lot more time, but we had so much fun, and their attention to detail is unparalleled. So if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and that's what they do, and that's why they get the results that they do. So it was really, really cool to be part of both.
Yeah.
Very fortunate.
As most of you are probably becoming more and more aware now, what we did was not voice acting, it was performance capture. voice acting is still a very integral part of making video games, but putting on the mocap suit, the balls on, and the helmet attached to the camera pointed at your face is becoming a bigger and bigger part of it. So our typical day would be in the performance capture studio, and as Rob said, we would spit out as many scenes as we could. But we learned our scripts. We usually got them about a week or so in advance. We would rehearse them in the green room whenever there was downtime, and then we'd go out into the studio and work with our amazing director, Rod Edge, and we would just keep at it until it was right. So that was kind of about it. And that was probably comprised about 85% of our work, which took 5 years. And then 15% of it would be in the booth, and that would typically be a lot of in-game dialogue, especially when you're riding towards missions, etc. But I remember I was a huge fan of Red Dead before I even knew I was a part of Red Dead 2. And I remember my first day, Rob's coming in today, and I was like, oh my God! And then it was the wolf rescuing mission, and I had to pick him up. I was like, he ain't light, man. So I hope that answers your question.
Hi, thank you. I want to thank you for making a really good bird watching simulator. That's meant a lot to me.
You're welcome.
And I am a very emotional person, so both of the games have been trying for me. Both games came at just perfect times in my life. Narratively, they've really just kind of like directed my tastes in just perfect ways. And so I was wondering if either of you in researching your roles had any specific media you would study to kind of not only portray like the Western genre, but also Arthur as a dying man. Like, how did you kind of, spoilers, shit, sorry. How did you kind of capture that?
So, I guess there's 3 answers to that. So first of all, before Red Dead, really the Western genre was kind of mostly film with novels. So I studied, we looked at a lot of Westerns. I know that Rockstar told me, I said, what films do you recommend? Which ones should I check out? Because I was always a huge fan of all the spaghetti ones. I loved Westerns ever since I was a kid, even back from the beginning. Like with Stagecoach, with the Duke, and going forward from there. And, they told me to check out The Proposition, which technically isn't a Western, but it more or less is, except it's set in the Australian outback. But it's still, as far as the genre is concerned, it's a Western. And, Guy Pearce plays a guy who has to come to terms with questioning his own loyalty to his brother. And I took a lot of themes from that to bring into Red Dead, as I thought they had a lot in common. And huge fan of Clint Eastwood, huge fan of John Wayne. I think I took more from John Wayne than I did Clint Eastwood, because Arthur talks more than Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood barely says anything. But I also was a huge fan of Toshiro Mifune from the Kurosawa movies, who some of you who might know, Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More, were based on Kurosawa's films. And Toshiro Mifune plays this samurai, and he can be funny in one scene, he can be scary as hell the next, and he just had this presence and diversity that I just wanted. I took a few pages out of his book too. And then to go to the TV, it's really hard. I tried to, it was difficult to find research about debilitating respiratory diseases such as TB, because it's such a treatable disease nowadays. So I went onto YouTube, and I was able to find some footage, like in Asia and India from like 50, 60 years ago, of people who had been suffering from diseases like tuberculosis. And I listened to that, and of course, not to get into too much personal detail, but I've been around people who've had respiratory diseases as well. So I've also tried to take pages from that. And when you do 4 hours in a sound booth, it's not hard to sound pretty hoarse and wheezy. Especially if you gotta shout. Like, remember we had to scream like we were on fire, and then scream as if we're falling off a huge cliff.
Yeah, I was hoping they could take mine from the first game.
Red Dead 2. It's one of my favorite games. I cried, my sister cried, my friend who never cries, he cried. It's something that impacted me on such an awesome level, but I think all of our favorite parts is just like going up to someone and either telling them you're the best or you suck. And then going to your horse and telling him how much of a good boy he is. So I have to ask, were all of those options of greeting and antagonizing, were they scripted or were like a bunch of like improvised? I gotta know.
Most of it was scripted. There was a little bit of improvisation, but the real challenge would be is like knowing that at this particular moment in time, Arthur, and you did it just as much as I did too. He could either be antagonistic or really nice. So having to come up with a delivery that would work for either situation and would still make sense to the player, that was a bit of a challenge. But the antagonistic ones were fun. Especially walking around camp too. I felt horrible saying them, but it was kind of fun as well. Because the writing is so wonderful, you know, some of them were pretty good insults. You smell like your shit took a shit. Did you say that? Did they give that one to you?
No, they did or not, but there were so many times where when we did get to the point where you're in the sound booth and I would be saying these lines, and once you kind of get the feel for it, they just kind of let you run with it until you either change categories or whatever, or you need to go back and change something you did wrong. But there were so many times where I'd just be saying these lines and saying them and saying them, and I would kind of, there's a piece of glass where the director is on the other side of the glass, and I'd look and think like, am I getting it? And they'd just be in there laughing so hard. you guys wrote this stuff, you already know what it is. It's so much fun.
Hello. So first of all, I wanted to thank you guys for creating such an amazing piece of art, because it is one of the best games I've ever played, probably the best, but thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you, coming from Red Dead 1, what was like the biggest challenge from, like trying to live to the expectation of the first game and introducing a new character? Meanwhile, trying to like respect, what people expect from the first character and giving him time. And also I wanted to request, could you guys say something like, Alex, come over here, your voices. Thank you.
So was that question directed towards me or to Roger?
I'm not in the first one.
I was kind of hoping that you would talk instead of me. So for the first game, we don't get, the way this works, we show up and we've got the script, but we've only got part of it. And you do it kind of in sections at a time, and it's not in order. So you don't know exactly what's going on. The very first scene that I shot in Red Dead 1 was trying to get Bill to come down. Bill! All that. And so that's, at that point, that's really all I knew. I thought this game is about this guy who needs to talk to his friend. So as it went on, I kind of learned what my character really was and what the story was about. And what I was told throughout that very consistently was, just remember that John Marston is the toughest guy in the world. You're not afraid of anyone. And I thought, okay, all right, good. Well, so then I go for Red Dead 2. John's this young punk kid that's trying so hard. And so I just in my own head said, okay, I've been that kid before. I've got an older sister who, when all her friends would come over and hang out, I tried so hard to be cool like that. And I wasn't. And so I took that with me on that ride. But yeah, really, so tell me your name again.
Alex, get the hell over here.
Let me think here. I kind of want to do like say something nice and then insult you, but I'm not. So you're my boy, Alex.
All right, I was just wondering if there was a specific scene or mission that was really difficult for you guys to act or record, emotional or just rough one.
Physically, I remember the shootout in Valentine with when you and Strauss get caught by Cornwall's fellas. That one was technically tricky because we had to travel a longer space than what the studio actually allowed. And we also had to push a wagon. And then for the instance of myself, I could be anywhere. So like Rob kind of brought up earlier, everyone who's pushing the wagon, the NPCs that the player has to cover basically and make sure that they don't get shot, they had to, every once in a while interact with Arthur, but he could be over their left shoulder or over their right shoulder, depending where the player was. So there was many different ways that we had to go about it, and the wagon was heavy. So that was kind of tricky. That was awesome Charles cosplay, by the way. Yeah, that's cool, man. You even got the shotgun holster right, too. I know I probably said this to a lot of you who've come up already, but I remember I was about 3.5, 4 years into the game, and I'm working on it, and I was like, this job's never gonna end. And then I get the sides, and I'm like, oh, well, this job's gonna end. So it's my first death scene, and that was kind of weird too, because I had gotten very attached to the character, and it's different. Most of my background before this was theater and voiceover with a little bit of film and film and TV thrown in, so but like you can work on theater for a long time, but it's the same script every night, whereas this was a real evolution of Arthur, and I got to know him in different situations as the sides and the pages came in. So doing those death scene for the first time was kind of weird. What do you think?
So this is kind of funny. So there was a time where we had at one point we had 2 stages going, and Roger was so busy with all the work that he had to do, and I had some spare time, so there was a shot that they had on the list that they realized they weren't going to get to, that had 2 stuntmen in it and Arthur Morgan. But because it's motion capture, they could change the avatar, and I could play Arthur Morgan. I didn't
we
say
shared a lot of the side missions. Yeah, we did share a lot of the side missions, didn't we?
Yeah. So this one in particular was when Arthur and Lenny go to the bar. I didn't do anything, and they didn't even keep what I did. But because that's the funny part. So when Arthur and Lenny leave the bar, and Lenny gets tackled, and so there are 2 stuntmen in the room that are just smashing each other to get that scene right. And they tell me, all you gotta do, you're drunk, so just walk drunk, but don't walk like John, because the people will know that, and don't do that. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna do a drunk Arthur walk, which I don't. So I just show you just a little preview. This is why it didn't last and stay in the game. But you got these stuntmen tackling each other. And you got me going, oh, this is so much fun watching this and being part of this. But they did the shot, and then they could play it back on their monitor. And you see these 2 guys smacking into each other, and then there's me being Arthur in the background. The director that shot that part said, man, if that is what you're like when you go out drinking, I want to go drinking. Yeah, that didn't make it into the game, but it was fun.
Hello. So I have to be honest, I was never into cowboys. I was totally like, oh yeah, Western, who cares? And then my friend Charles ended up making me play the game with her, and I'm like, oh, cowboys are badass now. So I want to thank you for helping me see the light to cowboys. But my question for both of you is that, was there ever a time when you were reading the script that you were honestly surprised, or at any time when you guys saw the game in its completion, they were like, oh dang, like actually taken back?
Yeah, well, the first thing that pops into my head is when me and Benjamin Byron Davis, who plays Dutch, got the, yeah, he's awesome. When we got the pages for, it's at the end of one of the missions with Eagle Flight. flies and we're cornered by the army and we do a Dutch Cassidy and Sundance Kid thing and jump off the cliff. So once we got the pages for that, we realized that Dutch basically says verbatim the same thing that he says to you in the first game. That blew my mind, because that links Arthur to the first game, you know, and for the writing was really intelligent in that way, because it's when that happens that you realize that when Dutch and John finally face off, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but when Dutch and John face off in the original game, you can tell that Dutch is actually thinking of Arthur when he decides to end it all. So that little link, that bridge between the two games blew my mind, the way that Dutch says the same speech, yeah. Dan Houser and Michael Unsworth and Rupert Humphreys, they're awesome.
Can you tell me a little about the process of making all those little extra sounds? Like, do they say grunt 50 different ways, scream 200 different ways? You spend like a whole day snorting in different ways.
You do, yeah. If they want 10 different sounds of a grunt, first of all, there's low grunt. Then there's, okay, you got punched a little bit harder this time. But you got to do 10 different variations of each level of these things. And so and then, and so they're recording, and the computer is able to tell. But you know, you get like 3 or 4 into it, and then your 5th one sounds exactly like your 2nd one. And then before you know it, you're just in there going, so it's ridiculous, but it's better to do it that way, because then you don't hear the same thing every time.
Yeah, I had to redo my lines with the horse. Because apparently the first time I was saying, "You're all right, girl." Hey, Raj, you gotta do those horse ones again. I was like, why? What's wrong with it? You don't really sound like you're talking to a horse.
So I'm Matt. First off, I want to say thank you guys for making that game and made me cry like a baby. It's I'm a big fan. But anyway, my question was, what tips or what tips do you guys have for someone who wants to do what you guys do?
Here's what I would say, and I don't know how I got the position that I got in. So I know that I had a commercial agent, and I know I had an audition and I went, and the rest, it was out of my hands, obviously. But I think that it's hard to know how to get started. But I think you can do something as simple as, if you want to be a voice actor, if you want to do performance capture, whatever you want to do, maybe just as simple as draw pictures on a piece of paper. Use stick figures if you have to. Write a story, make voices for them, and make a video out of it, and see if you like it. Just see if you like it, and you're not going to spend any money on it. And if you do like it, share it with people and see what kind of response you get. And share it with agents, because you never know. If you say the answer is no, if you look at something and say, no, that's not good enough, nobody's going to take that. If you say the answer is no, the answer is no. If you push it out there and let somebody else take a look at it, they might say, we really want to meet you and we really want to work with you. So just always keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to try.
Hi, sorry. My name's Tim, and my question is for Rob. I was wondering, so in the second game, you're kind of moved to the supporting role as opposed to the first game, which, I mean, obviously, into the epilogue, whatever, but for the second game, were you kind of taken aback that you actually end up having more of a, kind of a stronger emotional arc than you do in the first game, even though you're in a supporting role now? Did that kind of surprise you going in, knowing that you were not going to be the main character this time, but actually have kind of more, even more emotional material to work with, if that is even possible?
Well, yeah, and I was aware before we started that I was not going to be a playable character. But yeah, it was an opportunity to do a lot of things that I really wasn't able to do the first time. For instance, when you are or the playable character, you go into a scene to a certain point and maybe action starts or whatever. And you, during the performance capture, basically take a neutral pose, and that's where the player is able to take off and do whatever happens. When you're not the playable character, they let you go in there and start shooting guns and being crazy yourself. So that aspect of it was really fun, because I always thought, I get to get so close and then just nothing. Which he experienced this time. Yeah, as far as the arc of the character, it really is, I've not been in a position where I've had that opportunity before, really, ever. And I had so much encouragement and support from everyone at Rockstar to make me feel comfortable and to make me aware of what it was they were actually looking for. I was able to ask questions and repeat questions that I asked, and they had so much patience and wanted to allow me the opportunity to give them everything I had. And so that made it really, really cool, because I think in a lot of cases you have egos involved and you have people that don't have time for that, but I was always very comfortable trying to find out exactly what it was they were looking for, and they were very open to it and very cool. So I hope I did a good job with it, and well, thank you. But I was fortunate enough to be able to say, I don't know what you want, and please tell me, because I want to do a good job too. So that really, really helped out. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Josh, but I guess this is kind of a question for both of you guys. But so if you were in Dutch's game, and not your characters, but just you guys, would you, and when everything started to fall apart, spoilers, would you want to leave or just try and hold on to what you have and try and make things better and fix it what you can?
Oh. Is it me, but with the history of having been with them for 20 years?
You know everyone, you're very connected.
Oh man, that's hard. I don't know. You know what? I would have done everything I could, but I think, no, I don't want to give spoilers, but when Dutch leaves Arthur with the steam, you know, guys know what I'm talking about, and you see his feet walking away, I would have left then.
Howdy, my name is Joe. I have two questions real quick. So, Rob, you've been being John in both games. Anything you can talk about the man in the top hat that the general gamers don't know?
That's a really good question, and I absolutely don't have an answer. If I did,
All right, well, you okay,
but what an interesting guy, right? Is it God? Is it the devil? Is it both? I don't know. But yeah, it's so cool. And I guess I kind of am happy to not know, because I'm in the same boat as everyone else.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, Roger, first off, amazing work. So, as being Arthur Morgan in Red Dead 2 main character and such, would you say that what happened to Arthur in the game, spoilers, I'm sure I'm right now, would you say that that was a recurring theme in Rockstar games?
I can't speak for GTA, which is an awesome franchise in its own right. And that reminds me, going back to an earlier question, I played a lot of GTA too, just to understand the mechanics of how, especially how to blend in and out of cutscenes and how that works, and how to give the animators what they needed. But to go back, I'm sorry, what was the question again? So sorry. I think with our franchise, redemption is something that, there are stories of redemption that aren't necessarily tragedies, like A Christmas Carol. You know, we see Ebenezer Scrooge be this awful man, and then when he's confronted with his actions, you know, and then he becomes a good man. And And we see something similar with Arthur, but whereas Scrooge is a story about goodness, I think redemption is more of a tragedy. And in order for it to be a tragedy, the protagonist has to be responsible and eventually meet their untimely end, you know? Speaking in the Greek sense of the tragedy anyway. So I think the Red Dead Redemption series is technically our tragedies, you know? There's a lot of humor in there and a lot of lightheartedness thrown in, but when you have a game as big as both of them, you know, you can't have the same note the whole way through. So I believe that Red Dead Redemption has redemptive qualities and also very tragic qualities as well.
Hi, Rick. Just a huge honor to meet both of you. You're both like the big, most famous cowboys in all of video games. My question for both of you is, what was your favorite lines or most weirdest lines you had to record during the making of the game?
Yeah. I never knew that was going to catch on like that. Harren Atkins is a wonderful actor. He plays Lenny. And me and him had a lot of fun doing that. But it was very, as you can see from the way it's cut and the way it's edited, is very unusual from the rest of the game. And then everything was very interspersed. It's kind of like going out on a crazy night. You know, you're doing one thing 1 minute, and then another thing another minute. And it was like that recording it too. It's like, run over there and do the can-can. Now run over here and punch each other in the face. So it was kind of disorientating on purpose. So, and then we probably knocked that out in about 2 or 3 days. And then in the booth afterwards, yeah, didn't expect that to happen. But as far as strange lines were concerned, I remember strange side missions. You did the time machine guy, and I did the dinosaur woman. The dinosaur woman was kind of like, what? And then when I saw what you did in the time machine and I ADR'd it in the booth, that made me chuckle too. Some of those lines were pretty crazy.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't understand it going into it, but you know, shooting this game and knowing that they were still the gang for this, I thought this is so cool because I'm going to get to run around with Dutch and with Bill and Javier. We're all going to be real tight and crazy together. And of course, to tell the story correctly, you have to realize why they didn't remain a gang. But it was really weird when I started first getting the scripts that showed how John was butting heads with each one of those characters. And I thought, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense, yeah, because they're not together still. There had to be a reason for them not to. But that to me was kind of like, oh man, yeah. Just a realization that probably anyone would have had before I did. But yeah, I think that's fine.
Thank you.
Hey, my question is for both of you, and how easy did Peter make it for you to hate him?
Peter is so cool. I know Micah is not cool, but I think probably everybody already knows anyway. Peter is so cool. He's one of my good friends and will be. And yeah, on stage though, daggone. I mean, dude, I'm kind of nervous around him. Really.
He made it really easy, yeah. And I did my scenes with him, but then I would hear him practice his scenes in the green room where he would just be trash talking to other members of the gang. I'd be like, damn, he's a real asshole. It's funny too, because over the course of making the game, you know, there was a lot of little tweaks that we did to the script. And when we started initially, Peter was such a creepy guy that I think him and Arthur kind of started off in more of an antagonistic relationship. But then, you know, the amazing people at Rockstar saw that that relationship needed somewhere to go. So we went back and we tweaked a lot of stuff at the beginning so that Arthur and Micah are more kind of chummy adversarial instead of already hating each other, because that relationship needs a journey just like everything else. But Peter is one of the funniest guys I know. He's so hilarious. Him and Jim Santangelo, who plays Pearson, those guys, I would be in stitches whenever they came in. It was always going to be a funny day.
Thank you.
Look, the antagonize option was like one of my favorite things, especially when I saw it in Driscoll. I want to know from
you look like antagonizing would be the last thing you would do. You're so nice.
It's the wig, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the wig.
I want to know from both your perspectives, what were some of your favorite antagonized lines from both Arthur and John?
You know, so the thing about having so many lines is that the performance capture, you've got to have them memorized, and you want to do a good job and be prepared for everything that they're going to throw at you when you arrive on stage to shoot the thing. You'd memorize it, they'd say, okay, we'll take that, and then it would immediately get thrown out of your head because you had to make room for the next pile of papers that they were going to have to memorize. And then a lot of the stuff in the booth, like I said, you get rhythm and it just kind of comes out. So I didn't hold on to a lot of them, but it was fun though, the way that they would for part of it, for me anyway, they would say, okay, so the first line you're just saying hello, the second line you're saying something nice, and then the third line you're antagonizing. So you would say something like, howdy partner, sure is beautiful around here. Don't know why they let you in. So you get into a rhythm with that, and then you crack yourself up, and it's really fun, really fun stuff.
It was complicated, and then there were different tiers of insults too. Like if you started straight off the bat antagonizing, and then you go, what's your problem? I don't like the way you look. And then, okay, now we're on this third line, Raj, they're probably running away, so you have to be shouting as if so they make sure that they hear you. Yeah, I think they told us that between the two of us, I think we did 120,000 lines of dialogue. So it's hard to remember all of them, but I remember some of the things I said to Grimshaw were pretty horrible. And Tilly as well. And there was some of the stuff to Dutch was really funny too, because it was quite a balancing act, but you didn't want to be too disrespectful, you know? But it was like, hey Dutch, you haven't said anything for a while. Must have been at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes since your last speech.
Thank you.
Red Dead actually got me to not judge a game by its developer, because my dad and I played GTA 5. I didn't like that story, I didn't like that game. So then when my dad got me to play Red Dead, I was like, fine. And I really, really loved it. So then when Red Dead 2 came out, I'm like, you are not allowed to play that game without me.
That's so great.
And anyway, I wanted to know if you guys had the opportunity to voice anyone else in the game, would you have, and why?
If we had the opportunity, who would we want to be? You know, in the first game, Seth, the grave digger, he was one of the funniest people to work with, and I thought it was really cool how, you know, he's never just looking at, yeah, John, nice to meet you now. I'm like, get out of here. I thought that would be fun to be him. I think he did it way better than I could, but I really enjoyed working with him and thought that came across really well. He was really cool, funny.
Well, anyone else? I don't know. You know, I would love to. Sean's a great character. And he was wonderfully done by Mick Belanfy. He did the performance capture, not just the voice, don't forget. And, you know, as an Irishman too, I was really happy to see that they hired a real Irishman this time. So I would love to see, there was so many too. Charles as well, such a stoic, strong anchor. There's just so many wonderful characters. Trelawney turned out to be pretty fun too. I know the guy, Stephen Jeviton, who plays Trelawney, he said, I was going for a male Katharine Hepburn. I think he got that pretty good, didn't he? Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, just want to say, best performance in any video game I've ever played. Really awesome. Both you guys and everyone else that was in there. The thing that I really liked were the campsite interactions that you guys had. Like just walking through camp, as soon as I hear someone talking, I just waddle over as quickly as I could. Just to see what was going on. Like Hosea teaching Jack to read, or hearing Mike tell about his brother and his wife in California. Just all of it brought it home together, all the personal relationships within the game. I was wondering, what were some of the ones that you really liked? Cool.
Well, that means so much to hear, because they worked really hard on that, and we knew while we were doing it that a lot of it might not be found, no two players have the same story, and so much of that could easily be missed, especially from someone who just wants to get through the storyline too. So the fact that it compelled you enough to listen to it really means a lot. But I'll let you answer that, because as Arthur's walking through camp, I wasn't privy to a lot of that. I would interject at the end, maybe one line or two, but you did that more often than I did.
Yeah, they were like a campfire conversation is kind of the way it was presented to us, and it was always so cool to be, I thought they were all really well written, and so it was fun to try to perform them, and then it was also really cool to sit there and listen to other people do it, and it really was entertaining. We didn't, unless somebody said, can I read this out loud with you, and just so I can hear it come out of my mouth, whatever. You didn't know what you were sitting there listening to, so all the reactions were very genuine. And there was one that Stephen Palmer did, Bill Williamson, where he got really emotional. And I don't know if it was because I know Stephen now and he's a good friend of mine, or if it was like the character, and I thought, wow, like you're really taking this somewhere. But almost all of us that were sitting there thinking, all these tough cowboys sitting there listening to Bill, and we're all going, you better knock it off, man. They were always great, though. It's so much fun to be part of. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Skyler. Honored to be here with you. Thank you for what you've done. You've provided hours and hours of not just entertainment, but moving entertainment. And side note, deciding which one of you to, which one of the characters to cosplay was really hard. Practically had to flip a coin at the end. But no, amazing job. So my question is for Rob. Basically, with you stepping back into the boots of John Marston and getting to flesh out the character a little bit more. But more than that, the prospect of bridging the gap between the two games, what was that like for you? Because for me, it was like, I was nudging my wife, we get to buy Beecher's Hope, we get to build the house, we get to do it. But for you, as a character, being able to see all that fleshed out, what was it like for you?
Oh my goodness. A lot of emotions. I mean, knowing what happens in Red Dead Redemption and trying to find a way to make sure that everybody can really feel that transition from being the young punk trying to fit in to being that person that is a stand-up guy and really working hard to do what means something to him, what means everything to him. Just as I said earlier, getting the script in bits and pieces, just trying to do everything I could to make sure that I was informed enough, at least, to give the best performance, so that you don't think about the fact that a lot of people say, when I bought a video game, I didn't think I was going to be so moved emotionally by it. Well, when you're a character in one, you don't necessarily think that's what you're going to do for people or experience yourself too. So there were a lot of times where I would say, just how emotional does John Marston get? Because me reading it, I thought, whoa, this is really, I'm a crier. I cry when I go to a wedding and I don't even know like, it's true, it's embarrassing, but I thought, you know, what if John Marston cried? And they were like, no. But it was really a really incredible journey, and so fun, so cool. All right, I guess that does it.
Thank you so much, everybody. You guys.